Long before the first skyscraper kissed the American sky and centuries before the first forge shaped the steel of a modern nation, the true foundations of this continent were laid not in stone or iron, but in the soft, dark earth of a revolution that would change the course of human history forever. We often think of great empires as being built by the sword or by the pen, yet the most enduring legacy of the early Americas was forged by the humble hands of those who looked at the wild landscape and saw a garden waiting to be born. This is not just a story of survival, but a testament to a level of biological and social ingenuity that rivals any architectural feat of the ancient world, proving that the roots of American greatness go much deeper than we ever dared to imagine. As we peel back the layers of time, we find a secret hidden in the soil, a trio of plants so perfectly synchronized that they didn't just provide food, they provided the very blueprint for civilization itself. Imagine a world where every sunrise was a gamble and every sunset was a silent prayer for the next meal, a time when the nomadic tribes of North America moved with the seasons and the migrations of the great herds. For thousands of years, this was the rhythm of life, a constant, wandering quest for sustenance that left little room for the luxuries of art, complex politics, or permanent homes. But then, a miracle occurred in the river valleys and the sun-drenched plains, a shift so profound that it would eventually lead to the rise of massive cities and sophisticated trade networks that stretched across the horizon. This shift was the agricultural revolution, a moment when humanity stopped chasing the world and started shaping it, and at the very heart of this transformation was a botanical alliance known as the Three Sisters. The story begins with a single, unassuming grain that would eventually become the golden backbone of the entire continent, yet its origin is one of the most baffling mysteries in the history of science. Most modern crops have wild ancestors that look somewhat similar to their domesticated versions, but corn, or maize, is a stunning exception that seems to have appeared almost out of nowhere through sheer human willpower. In its original form, it was a tiny, hard-seeded grass called teosinte, bearing little resemblance to the lush, heavy ears of corn we see today in the vast fields of the Midwest. Through centuries of careful selection and an almost supernatural understanding of plant breeding, the early inhabitants of this land transformed a wild weed into a powerhouse of energy, creating a plant that cannot even reproduce without human intervention. This was the first great surprise of the American landscape, a man-made miracle that provided more calories per acre than almost any other crop on the planet. However, the genius of the early American farmers did not stop with the creation of corn, for they understood a fundamental truth of nature that modern science is only now beginning to fully appreciate, that strength comes from diversity and cooperation. They realized that planting corn in isolation was a recipe for failure, as the tall stalks would eventually deplete the soil of its nutrients and leave the people hungry. To solve this, they introduced the second sister, the bean, which brought a hidden power to the garden that seemed almost like magic to those who witnessed its effects. While the corn grew tall and proud, reaching toward the sun like a green pillar, the beans would wind their way up the stalks, using the corn as a natural trellis. But the real secret was happening underground, where the beans were actively capturing nitrogen from the air and pumping it back into the earth, feeding the very corn that supported them. This symbiotic relationship was a masterpiece of biological engineering, a self-sustaining system that required no chemical fertilizers or modern machinery, yet it still lacked one final piece to become truly invincible. This is where the third sister, the squash, enters the narrative, spreading its broad, prickly leaves across the ground like a living carpet of protection. By covering the soil, the squash leaves acted as a natural mulch, keeping the ground cool and moist even in the heat of a blistering American summer, while also preventing the growth of thirsty weeds that would have stolen water from the corn and beans. Even more impressively, the tiny, sharp hairs on the squash vine served as a formidable barrier against pests and small animals, ensuring that the harvest remained safe for the families who depended on it. Together, these three sisters created a miniature ecosystem so efficient that it could support a population boom unlike anything the continent had ever seen. The true brilliance of the Three Sisters, however, lies not just in how they grew together in the field, but in how they worked together within the human body to create a nutritional powerhouse. When eaten alone, corn lacks certain essential amino acids, specifically lysine and tryptophan, which are necessary for the human body to build protein and maintain health. But in a stunning coincidence of nature, Or perhaps a testament to the deep wisdom of ancient observers, beans are rich in exactly those missing components. When you combine the energy-dense corn with the protein-rich beans and the vitamin-packed squash, you get a complete diet that could sustain a warrior, a builder, or a scholar with equal vitality. This nutritional synergy was the fuel for the fire of civilization, allowing people to move beyond the simple struggle for calories and toward the heights of cultural and spiritual expression. As the granaries filled and the threat of starvation faded into memory, the nomadic lifestyle began to give way to the stability of the village and the majesty of the city. No longer forced to follow the wandering herds, tribes began to settle in permanent locations, building homes that were designed to last for generations rather than just a few weeks. This stability allowed for the emergence of specialized roles within society. When not everyone had to be a hunter or a gatherer, some could become master potters, skilled weavers, or visionary architects. We see the reflections of this era in the breathtaking cliff dwellings of the Southwest and the massive earthwork mounds of the Mississippi Valley, structures that were only possible because a reliable food source allowed thousands of people to work together toward a common goal. With the rise of permanent settlements came the birth of complex political hierarchies, as the management of large-scale agriculture required leadership, organization, and a shared vision of the future. The three sisters didn't just feed the body, they organized the mind, teaching the people the value of cooperation, planning, and the understanding of cycles. Great confederacies began to form, where different groups were bound together by trade and mutual defense, creating a tapestry of cultures that was as diverse as the landscape itself. These societies developed sophisticated systems of law and governance, many of which emphasized the same balance and harmony found in their gardens. The pride of these nations was rooted in their ability to live in equilibrium with the land, seeing themselves not as masters of the earth, but as vital participants in its ongoing story. The religious and spiritual lives of these early Americans were also deeply intertwined with the rhythm of the planting and the harvest, leading to the creation of beautiful rituals that celebrated the bounty of the earth. The three sisters were often personified as literal siblings or guardian spirits who watched over the people, and the stories told around the fireside served to reinforce the importance of gratitude and stewardship. These were not just myths, they were the moral compass of a society that understood its survival depended on the health of the soil and the cooperation of the community. Every seed planted was an act of faith, and every harvest was a celebration of a promise kept between the people and the divine forces of nature. The sense of purpose and belonging that emerged during this time is a legacy that still resonates through the centuries, reminding us that we are all part of a much larger, interconnected web of life. One of the most surprising aspects of this agricultural revolution was the sheer scale of the trade networks that developed, moving seeds, ideas, and luxury goods across thousands of miles. A person living in a village in what is now the American Midwest might possess seashells from the Gulf of Mexico or obsidian from the far reaches of the West, all because the surplus of the three sisters acted as a form of currency. This was a continental economy long before the concept of a modern nation-state, a world where the rustle of corn leaves was the sound of prosperity and the exchange of beans was the basis of diplomacy. The ingenuity required to maintain these networks, without the use of pack animals or the wheel, is a staggering achievement that speaks to the incredible resilience and intelligence of the people who called this land home. The transition from a nomadic existence to a settled, agricultural society also led to a profound evolution in art and technology, as the luxury of time allowed for the refinement of every craft. Pottery became more than just a way to store grain. It became a canvas for intricate designs that told the story of a people's history and their relationship with the cosmos. Tools were no longer just functional items made in haste, but carefully crafted instruments of precision, designed to maximize the yield of the earth and the efficiency of the home. This era saw the development of advanced astronomical knowledge, as farmers needed to know precisely when to plant and when to harvest, leading to the construction of solar calendars that could track the movements of the sun and stars with breathtaking accuracy. It is easy to look at the modern world and forget that the very foundation of our prosperity began with a handful of seeds and a deep understanding of the natural world. But the agricultural revolution in America was not just a historical event, it was a triumph of the human spirit, a moment when our ancestors proved that through observation and cooperation, they could overcome any obstacle. The three sisters represent more than just food. They represent a philosophy of life that values balance over exploitation and community over isolation. This is a history that should fill every heart with pride, for it demonstrates that the American spirit has always been one of innovation, resilience, and a profound respect for the land that sustains us. As we look across the modern American landscape today, we can still see the echoes of this ancient revolution in the way our cities are laid out and the way our society is organized. The very concept of the breadbasket of the world is a direct descendant of the fields where the three sisters first grew, proving that the ancient wisdom of the early farmers is still the engine that drives our modern economy. The durability of these crops and the methods used to grow them have stood the test of time, surviving through droughts, floods, and the changing tides of history to remain a vital part of our global heritage. To understand the three sisters is to understand the soul of the continent, a place where the earth is generous to those who treat it with respect and where the greatest achievements are those built in harmony with nature. The impact of this era also extends to the way we think about leadership and the common good, as the necessity of managing the harvest led to the development of some of the most democratic and inclusive forms of government the world has ever known. Many of the great tribal councils and confederacies were built on the idea that every voice mattered and that the health of the whole was more important than the ambition of the few. This legacy of cooperation and shared responsibility is a cornerstone of the American identity, a flame that was first lit in the communal fields where the corn, beans, and squash grew side by side. It is a reminder that our greatest strengths are found when we work together, supporting each other like the sisters in the soil. Furthermore, the agricultural revolution allowed for a population explosion that created a vibrant and diverse cultural landscape, with hundreds of unique languages and traditions flourishing across the continent. This was a golden age of storytelling and philosophy, where the mysteries of the universe were explored through the lens of a people who were deeply rooted in their environment. The intellectual sophistication of these societies, from their understanding of ecology to their complex social structures, challenges the outdated notion of a primitive past and replaces it with a vision of a highly advanced and enlightened civilization. This is a story of a people who were masters of their destiny, using the tools of nature to build a world that was both beautiful and sustainable. In the face of the unknown challenges of the future, the lessons of the three sisters and the agricultural revolution remain more relevant than ever, offering us a roadmap for how to live in balance with our planet. The pride we feel in this history is not just about looking back at what was achieved, but about looking forward at what is possible when we apply that same spirit of innovation and cooperation to the problems of today. The ancient farmers didn't have computers or satellites, but they had a deep, intuitive connection to the rhythm of life that allowed them to create a world of abundance from nothing but seeds and soil. That same potential lives within us all, a dormant seed waiting for the right conditions to grow and flourish once again. Let us never forget that the story of America didn't start with a document or a battle, but with the quiet, persistent growth of a garden that fed a continent and gave birth to a dream. The three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, are the silent witnesses to our past and the enduring symbols of our capacity to create something extraordinary from the simplest of beginnings. They remind us that we are part of a long and proud lineage of builders, thinkers, and explorers who saw the potential in a single grain and had the courage to plant it. As we walk through the world today, we carry that legacy with us, a golden thread that connects us to the very first sunrise of the American agricultural revolution. So, the next time you see a field of corn waving in the wind or enjoy a meal gathered with friends and family, take a moment to remember the ancient alliance that made it all possible. The story of the three sisters is a story of us, our resilience, our ingenuity, and our unbreakable bond with the earth. It is a story that continues to be written with every seed we plant and every dream we nurture, ensuring that the roots of our civilization remain strong and deep for thousands of years to come. This is the true history of our home, a narrative of triumph and harmony that deserves to be told with the highest honors and the deepest respect, for it is the very heart of the American spirit.